Hey friends, in today's Valentine's tutorial, I'm serving up two treats for you. I've got a simple floral greeting card and a little love story. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and on this channel we make art together and it's fun, not scary. And today I have a little Valentine's treat for you. Yes, I have a little love story to share. A little story about my first crush. Juicy, I know. and then we're gonna work on some Valentine's little, Valentine's cards for Valentine's. What am I trying to say? Obviously it's Valentine's because I've got my red sweater on. I'm like the teacher at school. I just need a pin right here. And then dangly earrings, like pink dangly earrings, like I'm all in red. I love those teachers. I kind of was shying away from doing this for a minute because I just thought, you've seen it on the channel. Like what we're gonna do is kind of focus on small little flowers and leaves and use those tiny, simple elements to make something that's really beautiful and looks really detailed, but is actually really easy to paint. And then I was like, no. We need to be building our skill sets, not just always moving on to something new. That's kind of my predilection, is to be like, I've done it, let me try something else, instead of building the skill, getting better. And I follow artists on Instagram that will their whole thing is just a certain type of landscape or a certain type of floral. And it's it's okay to niche down, you know what I mean? So that's what we're doing. We're gonna do a very Shayda, small floral kind of folk art inspired Valentine. What I've done here is ripped a bit of handmade paper. My sister-in-law just went to Nepal on this big trekking trip and she brought me back some soap and tea and handmade paper. And actually, this is what it looks like. You can see there, it's got beautiful flowers and dried leaves in there. But today, I think I actually like the back. It's a more subtle pattern on the back, and as I always say, they're your art supplies. Use them however you want. And so I've ripped them to about a 5x6 size. This one I actually painted a little heart, obviously, you can see that. And we're gonna use gouache today. Now I'll be using colors like magenta, red, and Van Dyke brown and white. I've got water, paper towel for blotting my brush. I just use a little palette, a little plate, little thrifted plate as my palette, and then I've got a number 6 round brush. You don't have to use gouache. I have been using gouache a lot more. I'm changing, I'm evolving my style a little bit. I hope that it feels okay to you. A lot of the gouache projects that I do, you could also do in watercolor. This one would look really good with brush pen, especially if you had some paint pen to layer on top or gel pen, but it would also look really good with watercolor. So yeah. So let's just do a simple Shayda-esque floral, folky, simple, cute, and let's tell a little story. A little story about 13-year-old Shayda. There's nothing better than a teen love story. Now it's just I met Chris in my late 20s. We fell in love. We got married. It's great. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. But teenage stuff, it's like a Shakespearean epic. Let me set the scene for you, and we will mix up some gouache. And actually, this one I just painted. We're going to set it aside. We're gonna let it dry. I had just taped these guys down. Ooh, maybe putting tape on there is a bad idea. Okay, no tape. No tape on the delicate handmade paper from Nepal. Scratch that. For this one, we're going to just draw a little heart in the center. You can just use pencil. You know, I like a perfectly imperfect heart myself. And once you've got the shape outlined there, make sure you can really see it, because I tend to do a sketchy, and then later on when I'm filling in, we're going to fill in with lots of little flowers and leaves. I'll be like, I can't really see. Okay. And then what we're going to do, you're like, just get to the love story already. We're going to mix our gouache. For me, I'm just mixing a nice dark, rich red. I'm using magenta, and it's already dried out, and that's because I always leave the caps off. So even the paint in the tube is partially dehydrated. I'm mixing magenta, red, and Van Dyke brown to give me a nice, rich burgundy. Frankly, a little violet in there wouldn't hurt, but I don't got that color. There's always a way to make things work and get the general look of what you want. If you don't have something, move along. there's a way to make it work. So all we're gonna do, very Shayda, is, simple little designs, stuff like that. I've got way too much paint in my brush. I'm not in full control of it, and that's okay. And this is not like a good watercolor paper by any means either, which is fine, but it's just good to be aware of that using something like a gouache, which will pretty much just sit on top, especially if you're doing like a simple little design like this and not loading it on and layering. It's going to work well on this paper. So anyway, I will set the scene. I'm 13. I grew up in a small farm town in rural Ontario, southern Ontario. And there was about maybe say 45 kids my age. And so every year that we went through, and we went all through together from kindergarten to grade 8. So this is grade 8. It's the final year in that school. So you're like ruling the school. There were too many kids for there to be one class. And so what they would do is there would always be a split. So for this final year, there was going to be a grade 8 and then a 7-8 split. And you wouldn't know what class you were going to be in. So you never really knew if you were going to be with your friends. And I was kind of in a group of maybe 8 girls, a little bit cliquish, like a lot of like subtle bullying that was constant. And I'm happy to say I sort of got away from that clique in high school. I mean, I was a part of it as well. I wouldn't say that I was a bully, but you know how when it's toxic anyways. So anyways, in grade 8, I ended up in the grade 8 class, and then there was a 7-8 split. And the funny thing was, they actually took a lot of the grade 8s and put them in the split because I guess there wasn't like enough grade 7s or something. Anyway, they made that kind of the larger class. And then there was like a relatively small, like maybe 19 kids, grade 8 class. And so that class just felt a little bit more intimate. Most of my friends were in the split. It was just me and one good friend. And the teacher that we had in this small class, and I have basically one good friend with me, he was this really old, like on his way to retirement, sort of old guy. And he was just grumpy. And so I think it created sort of a more intimate sense among the students, just because he was hard to deal with, and he was also a bit funny. You know how really grumpy teachers, it's kind of like you can't help but laugh. And this small class, and all of us kind of have friends in the other class, and so we got really close. And we were seated by our last names, and I got seated next to this boy named Dave, because both of our last names started with M. My maiden name was McCutcheon. And so we sat there like the whole year. This teacher, he was not about to like be like, this month we're switching seats. Like, no way. So all year we sat like that, and Dave and I got to become really good friends, and we would just help each other with our projects and talk about life. And he would always give me little compliments on my art and stuff like that, because I was always drawing and doing art projects back then. And I remember we were seated right at the front of the class, and we would always turn around and talk to all the people behind us, and the whole class just really got really close in a nice way. I guess it's also like, you're leaving, you're not gonna, see these kids again. So I'm sure that had to do with our closeness as well. But anyway, of course, you could see where this is going, developed like such a crush on this boy, Dave, and he was really cute. He had short dark hair, and he would wear like these football jerseys and cargo pants, and I thought that was like cool. He had like a nice calm energy as well. And I grew up in a house where we lived across the street from a church, so it's sort of a quiet property, and they had a big parking lot, and all the guys would come and do their skateboarding and do their tricks in the church parking lot. So I'd like sit in my bedroom window and watch them. And anyways, so I ended up with quite a crush. And, my friend who was in the class and I would just talk about who we liked and whether they liked us back and all that good stuff that you do at that age. I think the nice thing about being in grade 8 was that we were finally friends with the boys. Like, it didn't feel as separate as it had when we were younger. And, you can barely even talk to the boys and to the other kids that you don't know. Like there was such a sense of us all being in this together and dealing with this crazy old fart teacher together. So it was a really good year. So Dave and I got to be pretty close as the year went along. And as I said, my friend and I would discuss whether he liked me and did he like me back. And I'm pretty sure she must have had a crush as well. Now I'm like, I don't remember that part. Mean friend, but I'm sure she did. So we would just talk about the boys and it was exciting. It felt like the start of your high school life, I guess, like the part of your life that's going to be more adult. It was exciting to be 13. I remember really enjoying being that age. 13 is when I started shopping at thrift stores and developing my own style. So I really loved that. And yeah, anyways, Dave and I got to be like good buddies, but it never crossed my mind. I think I liked him so much. It never crossed my mind that he could like also have a crush on me. You know, when you're that age and you're just so like, I just love them. It feels like even though this is someone who's a friend, it feels like they're weirdly far away, out of reach in some ways, I think. And in this classroom, we had these really long, really big metal desks. And the problem was, and it was like a classroom-wide problem, the desks were so big and you could just shove so much stuff in there that everybody had like a wildly messy desk and no one could ever find anything. And it was such a problem. So we would have these days where this old crotchety teacher would make us clean out our desks. And it was so much fun. Like it was just this little like 13-year-old bacchanal in this classroom. That's not the right word, but we would have so much fun because we were allowed to be loud and just empty out our desks. And I think we just got out a lot of energy, you know, emptying the desks, getting rid of old stuff, chatting and hanging out and just enjoying our last year together as friends. And during one of these giant desk cleanouts that we did, I found right in the back of my desk, I had everything taken out, all of my binders, all of my art, all of my, old gum wrappers. I don't even chew gum anymore, but when you're 13, you're like, gum is a big part of my life. And so all of my stuff is emptied out. And I look in the back of my desk and there's this little crumpled up piece of paper, and that's fine. So I take it out and I don't recognize it. So I open up this ball, and it's a note. And it said, "I love you, Shayda." Or Shayda, I love you, or something like that. It said, "I love you." And I didn't know who it was from. I didn't know who it could be from, even though only really one person had access to my desk, since I was kind of on the end of the row. And then Dave, my crush, sat beside me. And I think it was a friend of mine that sat beside me on the other side. And so I remember talking to all my girlfriends, like, did you guys do this? Immediately when I got it, I thought, oh my gosh, like, could it be? But then part of me was like, no, it's probably a prank, even though my friends weren't really like pranky like that. That wasn't really like our relationship, to play like weird, mean pranks. And so I asked around a little and was like, did you do this? And my friends were like, no, we didn't do this. Like, this is amazing. Like, that note is totally, from Dave. And it just like made my year, of course, to receive such a sonnet in my desk. But, as life is when you're 13, I couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't signed. I didn't know for sure who it was from. Yeah. So I just went on with life, and we all graduated later that year. We had a big party, and a nice evening, and then we all went off to high school, and our high school was very big. Since we were from one little farm town, the high school was like made up of maybe 7 or 8 little farm towns. So it was a big school out in the middle of the country, and all the kids would get bussed in. So I still knew a lot of friends and kind of kept track of people, kept track of Dave, but I lost touch with most of those kids. And it just wasn't the same. And anyways, the point of this whole thing is that, nothing ever came of the note, of course, because nothing really could. I did not have the courage to go up to this boy and say like, hey, I like you, and I think you might like me too. I wouldn't even have known really like how to be in a like little mini relationship. When I got to high school and I met a lot of people that were like in committed relationships and stuff. That was so foreign to me. I was not really into that, and not really even into it in high school. I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think I'd rather, this was just my personal feeling. It was that I would prefer to save that kind of more heavy relationship, bigger relationship for when I am actually out living on my own, just because I am a little more private. I don't know, whatever. I wasn't into it in high school either, really, even though I had lots of fabulous crushes. So nothing ever came of the note. And Dave had this really, really lovely, pretty girlfriend through most of high school. And I pretty much I really didn't date in high school. And the reason I wanted to tell this story was because, it was just years later, I was thinking about that note and thinking about the day that we all cleaned out our desks and how loud it was in the classroom and how much fun we were all having, and how we all kind of knew that we weren't going to stay in this little small town bubble forever. And we would all be leaving soon, and we wouldn't all know each other forever. And just that day and the excitement of just something silly like cleaning out our desks, and then the excitement of receiving this love poem, 4 words. And I just realized, when I thought back on it, I realized that I knew without any embarrassment or shame or question that, of course, Dave had written it, because we were so in love in our own little 13-year-old way. And of course it was him, and I just realized I knew that now. And then I kind of thought, that means I'm all grown up now. This was probably like 10 years ago. And I was thinking about it in my early 30s and just thinking like, yeah, I'm not a kid anymore. There's really only one person who would have put it in there. The person who had access to the desk and who sat beside me and who I liked, who we had our little relationship. And it was just perfect the way it was. Didn't have to be anything else. And so that's my little love story for you about my first crush. A little Valentine's treat. Actually, not that much happens in the story, I realize. Really just about a bunch of teenagers cleaning out their desks. It's just funny. And that note gave me enough excitement. It sustained me for months. So I am just filling in this heart with lots of little flowers. Berries are great because you can kind of make them any shape. So if you have a long space that you need to fill in, you can put berries. Or if you have a long space that then gets wider, you can put berries throughout. And let's just fill in this guy down here. We're gonna do another flower. I think we'll give him like a little stem like that. Wouldn't it be funny if someone from my class saw this and was like, oh no, that was a joke. Like, I did send that. Because you just wouldn't shut up about this crush. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think at this time of year, it's kind of fun to think back on those little moments that we've all had of having a crush, and the excitement of being 13. A few little dots goes a long way as well. It helps to fill space, and it also just gives everything like a really delicate look that I think works beautifully. It makes the whole thing look more put together, more detailed. There we go. You really just want to make sure that you're following the shape of that heart at least pretty closely, so that when you are done, you can, erase the heart, of course, and see the beautiful pattern that you've created. You've created a heart through all these small details. Okay, I think that's done. I think I've learned today that it's like a little bit trickier than I thought to tell a story and paint, but I hope that, well, first and foremost, I hope you really enjoyed my love story. I feel like I'm blushing a little. It's just hot in here. Anyways, I think it's just the hot tea or the red sweater or the dangly pink earring. I'm just kidding. I don't have pink dangly earrings. I wish I did. I will let that dry, and then I am going to erase the little pencil border, and then eventually I could put a message. What I like about a Valentine like this is, it took 15 minutes, and you could just write your message on the back, and then whoever you give it to, like, that would look cute just sitting on a desk or on the fridge. I don't think it's like a frameable piece. I mean, maybe, but don't get wet paint on. Okay, sorry to scare you. This guy should be dry. Oh, this paper like kind of stays wet longer than I imagined. But the nice thing here is that all we're gonna do is take white gouache, and you can mix just like a hint of pink and red, whatever. Honestly, probably just using the red water will color that enough, because you really do want it quite light. And what we're going to do here is the exact same thing, but we're just going to, build up the pattern in a very light blush pink on that beautiful red. But actually, this is still a bit wet. So I think what I will do is I'm gonna have to let it dry and come back to it later. But you get where this is going. I don't even know if I'll show it on camera. I do think this one could maybe benefit from like a little border. So maybe we'll just do that together. And then we will, because you can see that is bleeding just like ever so slightly. So that's not what we want. If you saw the February plan with me, I did this little scalloped edge border that I really liked on the February cover page. And it's just made up of little semicircles. And I used a marker, but the design applies marker or paint. Kind of messed it up a bit, but I think the nice thing about this design is it doesn't have to be perfect to look good. I kind of like how it gets a little wonky and whimsical. And I actually just did a scalloped edge on a ceramic piece that I created. I went to one of those clay cafes and painted something. Man, do I have a story to tell you guys. This sentence sounds weird, but it was the clay cafe from hell. It's a story for another day. It might be too complicated of a story, frankly, for me to tell while I'm painting. Maybe I'll just do like a one-woman show about my experience at this wacky place. I really do feel like it's a story that deserves to be told. So another time, friends, I've already given a lot of myself today, telling you of my first crush. I think I did have crushes before 13, but just not like those major, like lovey-dovey feelings. And that's exciting when you are that age and you're like, kind of get to feel all those feelings for the very first time. I mean, whatever age you are when that happens. I think that's exciting. I had some really strong connections with people as a kid. As I sort of alluded to at the start of that story, there was just an odd number of kids in my grade. I'm sure this happens in lots of grades in small towns. But one year, they put all of the kids, there was even less. There was like, I don't know, 30 of us in that grade that year. It was the year that I was in grade 5. And so they put all of the kids in my year in one grade 5 class, but there was 5 of us that they put in with the grade 6s. But here's the thing, they didn't skip us. Like they didn't say like, you guys are actually going to skip a grade. They just put us in with the grade 6s. And one parent, one boy, his parents complained and he was put back in with the grade 5s. And that left 4 of us that basically took grade 6, which was fine. But then we had to do grade 6 again the next year. Terrible. It's very weird. I don't know if I was an adult, I would be like, no, you can skip me. You can skip me ahead a year. That's absolutely fine. You can't make me do grade 6 twice. But that's not the point. The point that I was going to say was that I obviously got really close with those 3 other kids. It was 2 girls and 2 boys. And we did have sort of like a love-hate relationship because we were 10. And we used to like tease each other a lot and we had a lot of jokes, but we had a lot of fun. We sort of got left out a lot. The teacher would be like, oh, this is a grade 6 lesson. You guys can just, do these workbooks or something. And so we would, be left to our own devices a bit. It was a weird year. It's funny stuff. And so we got to be quite close, even though we did tease each other a lot. That was probably my influence. I come from a family that loves teasing. I'm working on it as an adult. I've realized that's not like an excellent way to show love and to show friendship. I remember one time just teasing my girlfriend all the way home from school. I just thought it was like we were having a riot. And then when she got home, she like ran into her house and then I knocked on the door and her mom said, Shayda, she doesn't want to see you because you've been teasing. And I was like, what? Teasing? Like, that's fun. So yeah, I had to do some work. Let's just say that. I'm still doing some work on not teasing. But if you are from a family that loves to tease, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where that's just like teasing. Even though it's painful, that's how we show love. I would say my whole family has gotten better and doesn't do that as much and can like talk about issues or, say, I think it's a symptom of people not always being able to, especially within families, not so much within kids, but within families, of people not always being able to say what they mean. And so I think my family has just gotten better about like being able to talk about whatever we need to talk about rather than just being, putting a jab out there and hoping that the jab will be understood as a command or a request to do or not do something. There we go. Okay, guys, I'm pretty sure that you don't want to just watch me paint semicircles all day. remember, I have a e-course sale going on these days, and it is going on for the entire month of February. Every week, the sale gets less and less good. So right now, for the first week of February, you can use code FEBSALE to save 30% on anything site-wide on my site, ShaydaCampbellCourses.com. I have 2 watercolor courses and 1 floral illustration, all of which would come in handy for a project like this. So go use that code, 30% off until February 8th. Then we go to 20% off the third week, 15% and then 10%. So you can save all month long, but the bigger savings are up at the start of the month, the front of the month. The front of February is where it's at, okay? So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to my little love story. And I can't wait to see you soon. I'm putting out 2, 3, even 4 videos every single week. And all you have to do is make sure you're here. So subscribe, turn those notifications on so that you're not missing anything. My most hated comment, even though it's like a nice comment, and this isn't anything against commenters, it's more against the algorithm, is when people are like, oh, where have you been? And I missed you, or I'm so glad you're back. And I'm like, back? I never left. So make sure you turn your notifications on. Typically, I only take like 1 or 2 weeks off every year, like a week at Christmas and a week in the summer. So I'm putting out like mega amounts of content, and it's all just like fun and chill like this. So subscribe. It's something you can do to help support this channel, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for hanging out, guys.